Can you turn your negative emotions into creative energy? Stay tuned and find out.
Welcome.
Okay, here's the question.
You serious?
How are we dark horses? You know, the ones everyone is betting against, the ones they don't expect to win, place, or even show on the track, and they'll even laugh on us when we talk about trying. How do we show the world our greatness and triumph?
Come on.
Well, that's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers.
Let's go.
This is The Dark Horse Entrepreneur. My name is Tracy Brinkman.
And push it up.
What is up? What is up? What is up, my dark horse friends and family? Welcome back to your ongoing dose of negative to creative flow learning. I'm your dark horse host, Tracy Brinkman, and you, well, that, my friend, is infinitely more important. You are a driven entrepreneur, or perhaps one in the making. Either way, you're here because you're ready to start, restart, kickstart, or just start leveling up with some great marketing, personal, or business tips and results in order to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. That's why I'm here hitting you with yet another solo success episode coming to you straight from the Dark Horse HQ as we dive deep into success with actionable advice, tips and steps designed to help you level up your game, your relationship game, your business game, your mind game, because we already know there are no shortcuts to success except for taking those little steps towards your goal every single day. Now, before we kick this off, what do I want to ask you? Yeah, that's right. Are you getting value? I think you are. I hope you are. You keep listening. You must be getting something out of it, right? So if you are getting that value, please go on down there, hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star rating, drop us some kind words in the review, heck, ask questions, make suggestions. I read each and every one of those reviews. It's those ratings, the subscribes, ratings, and reviews are your way of telling those podcast platforms out there that you are getting some value, and they should lift us up a little bit in the rankings so that we can reach more driven entrepreneurs just like you. So if you're getting that value, please take a moment, show the love, and help us spread the word. I appreciate you. Okay, a little different direction today, but I do that, right? That's one of the fun things about listening to this podcast. We'll talk about some negative emotions, and sadness is one of those things that we all go through, right? There's something happens and we feel sad, and we experience this over and over again in different points of our lives. And sometimes it's a short-term experience. Sometimes it lasts a little longer than we'd like. But these negative emotions can be a challenge to deal with, especially because society keeps telling us that these are emotions that we should not dwell on. However, my friends, it's important to acknowledge that negative emotions are just as important as positive ones. I mean, they're your emotions. You should have the right to feel them, right? I think in the big scheme of things, negative emotions are crucial for our overall happiness and well-being. What are you saying, Tracy? What the hell you mean negative emotions? I mean, are crucial for our well-being. Well, if you think about it, those negative emotions, they're there to tell you something. They're like pain, right? When you're out walking through the woods, all of a sudden you feel a pain in your foot. It's telling you something has happened. Something is wrong, right? It's helping you. These negative emotions are helping you make sense of everything life is tossing at you. The ups, the downs, the rights, the lefts, the forwards, the backwards. And it's a mechanism for you to evaluate your experiences, right? So, I think when they come up, these negative emotions, I don't think we should be judging them. We certainly shouldn't be suppressing them, but we should be using them as an instrument for success, right? To help you get yourself back on that road towards your dream, towards your destiny, if you will, towards that ultimate goal that you're striving for. However, let's be clear here. When you come face to face with negativity, or you're feeling down, or whatever is going on, it's really important that we focus on how to make good use of it rather than, like I was saying earlier, trying to eliminate it altogether, right? I mean, yeah, I get it. You're talking to Mr. Positive here, right? Having a positive outlook on life and on your relationships, on everything out there is extremely beneficial. And as you know, I live and breathe it on a daily basis. However, there are times, and there are lots of folks out there that find it to be very challenging to reach that state on an ongoing basis, on a regular basis, heck, sometimes at all, right? So here's where I want to offer you some thoughts on finding ways to channel your negativity, your negative thoughts and emotions to bring you an amount of creativity. So many people can get it from positivity. It's also possible to get it from the negative side. Wait a minute. I can be creative from being negative? Well, yeah. I mean, there are so many authors and otters. Yeah, those are cute little guys swimming in the river, right? Authors and artists that have been, very successful in having periods of an emotional roller coaster, turmoil, right? Their emotional ocean crashing on the rocks that resulted in some of the most beautiful, most artistic works that they were ever able to create. Now, it could be cliche here, but there's a certain connection, I would think, to those negative emotions and their ability to create those amazing pieces, whether they be songs or paintings or plays or whatever their creative outlet came out into the world as. And I think so many people really think that it's all about the positive emotions that fuel our creativity. But researchers are finding that some of the more complex creative ideas emerge from the darkness. What? The darkness? Yeah, you've heard me talk about turning around and facing, the abyss that maybe was a dark time in your life. I read some research. I guess I could call it a study, but I read some research that was conducted involving positive and negative responses to a group of people that were being asked about their dream jobs. So here's how it kind of happened, right? Each person received either positive feedback or negative feedback as the people were listening to them. So, they were asked, hey, tell me about your dream job. And as they began describing it, each person would receive either that positive feedback or negative feedback. They didn't get both. Now, here's the real fun part. After they, described their dream job, received whichever side of the feedback spectrum that they were given, they were asked to create a collage. And here's what was really interesting. The results showed that the participants that received the negative feedback, the negative responses, created more intrinsic and fluid and creative works of art in their collage than are their positive receiving counterparts. Right? Now, mind you, I get it. It's just a simple experiment, but it can show easily that the emotions of sadness and sorrow and just whatever, all those negative emotions, can make us more immersed and detail oriented than something to do with just positive relationships, right? It has something to do with, I believe they mentioned the relationship between emotion and cognition. And if I remember correctly, we're talking about that the moods of self-doubt, a bit of depression, and even anxiety, these depressive states were actually stimulating areas of the brain that controlled attention, analytical thinking, and abstract ideas and thoughts. So frustration and anger and this sadness can actually fuel creative tendencies and ideas. Maybe it's our brain's way of dealing with the emotions, right? I'm feeling sad. So if I think about all these beautiful constructs, maybe I'll feel better. Okay, so how do we turn these negative emotions into creativity? Now, like I was saying earlier, negative emotions are common and let's be honest, they can be very destructive if we don't deal with them in the right way. And trust me, I don't have any letters in my name, right, to give you any psychological advice. That's not what I'm here for. The idea is, for me, is not to eliminate those emotions completely, but maybe minimize the influence that they're having over us, right? And I'm not talking about things like clinical depression, right? My mom was, unfortunately a victim of that and dealt with that for a good part of her life. But rather, I'm talking about those day-to-day emotions. It's just kind of, you get home, you sit down, you're like, man, I just feel like shit, right? And you feel healthy, but there's just something going on. But rather than forcing ourselves to just try to get rid of that emotion, right? Maybe we should embrace the suck, right? Embrace those negative emotions and figure out a way to use them to be more damn well productive, right? So, maybe instead of coming home and feeling sad and frustrated or just pissed off, what do? You just flop down on the couch, you grab the remote, you turn something on, and you're sitting there passively just watching TV or surfing the internet, right? Maybe you should do something more engaging, maybe just more creative in itself. Maybe, grab a journal and start writing. Write down those emotions. Write down what you're feeling. Grab a pen and a paper and start drawing. Get up and do some exercise. See, with this in mind, here are the important elements I want you to consider when channeling your negative emotions into a more positive way. The first one is, let's identify the emotion, right? Let's identify the negative emotion that's kicking our butt at the moment. This is going to be the first and probably the critical step in acknowledging the negative emotions that you're currently feeling and accept them for what they are. And if you feel like these are, maybe they're hanging around more than you like, or they're showing up more often than you like, and that's when channeling these emotions into more creative means can be hugely beneficial. If they're stemming from a particular problem, then try to frame the problem using some questioning techniques, right? You want to ask yourself, things like, why is this true? Or what solutions or strategies would fix this situation? Why would I argue against what X said, whatever X is? Do I agree with X's opinion if there's you're pissed off about something that someone said about you? What part of this topic do I still not understand? Ask these different questions that are kind of open-ended, but are positive in their state. Don't say, well, why does this keep happening to me? Well, then you'll start getting, you'll go down a negative spiral. But, ask fact-based questions, right? This can certainly help you dig a little deeper into the problem that this negative emotion is trying to get you to dig into, and help you find a solution that you would never uncovered even if you were in a happier state. Huh? Now, I think the next thing that's very important to discuss here is, let's make sure we're directing our negative emotions at problems, not people. Right? It's important to use the creative process as a way to direct your negative state away from other people. Concentrating on creating something, whether it's writing or drawing or working out, right, will not only be therapeutic, but it'll also allow that inspiration to flow, right? It can channel that sadness and channel that frustration, channel that depression or anxiety, wherever it's going, away from inside you and onto the things that you're using it for, onto your canvas, onto your paper, and deflecting it away from people and causing unnecessary conflicts, right? There we go. I know one of the things my dad used to do, he was really good at this. Maybe it's where I started learning it subconsciously, is that whenever my dad had a harder day at work, he didn't come home and, bark at us. When I say us, I mean my mom and I. He'd come home and, chit chat, and then he'd go out to his little work shed and he would create. He would cut wood and make toys and create birdhouses, and he would build shit. Right? That was his way of diverting his negativity into a creative flow. I clearly must have started learning this way earlier than in my 50s, right? Now, I think the next thing we want to be sure we talk about here is, don't judge yourself. When you're in the creative process, it's really important not to be judgmental towards what it is you're creating in the first place, as well as yourself. Because man, when you're in these negative emotions, right? When you're in the middle of the throngs of experience and negativity in whatever form it may be, it could be really easy to fall into this judgmental trap. Creativity is an inspired process, right? It works best when you're just free of overanalyzing, overthinking over anything and evaluating ideas, and you're just doing. I know what I told the story of when I first did my first oil painting, being red-green colorblind and loving art. I got really good at drawing via pencil. Because in my early years, I would do colored art, and I would get commentary about, why is my grass that weird color of green? I even had one where my grass was brown and I thought it was green. I grabbed the wrong color. I thought it was green. I couldn't see it that it wasn't green. And so that turned me away from doing colors, and I got really good as I could draw with a pencil like nobody's business and do the shading, or is almost realism. And I'm not saying this to boast. I'm just saying, here is how I channeled that negativity and I became good in another area. But later on in life, I wanted to try again. And then Bob Ross came out with a kit where you could, do one of his paintings like he used to do in his PBS shows. And I started doing it. And I remember very specifically the very first painting I was doing, I was scared and I could feel that anxiety and I was anxious. And I took the easel and all the works out into the garage where I was totally alone. And I'd actually had a pretty rough day at work. So that was on top of everything else. But I started going through, it was a video base, set the video up on my little workbench and just started going through and doing it and painting it and just letting it go. All the anger, all the pissed offedness, if that's a word, all the anxiety, all the fear of how this was going to come out. I didn't care. I just let it roll, let it flow out of me, out of, the center, through my arm, through the paintbrush, onto the canvas. Was it a great painting? You know what? Here's what's funny. When I looked at it the first few times, I thought it was an amazing painting. When I looked at it a year later after I'd done two more, and I didn't do them right away, it's like I wait a couple of months and do another one. The first one, I thought sucked. The second one was better. And the third one was the bomb. I still love it to this day. But when I first did that first painting, I thought it was amazing. And I think what it was, as I look back, and I've done this before, it wasn't that I thought the painting as itself was amazing. It was the experience of just letting all that negativity flow out into the creative process onto that canvas. That, as I looked at it, I was like, man, this is awesome. And it was a very simple sunset type scene. But anyway, so I wanted to share those kinds of things about taking that negativity and just letting it flow out in whatever creative process you can think of, whether it's writing or dancing or painting and drawing or creating, building things like my dad did, cooking like I've done. I've done lots of cooking as a creative process. Learning a musical instrument. Don't have to be good at it. I still beat on these drums that are sitting here behind me as I'm talking to you on the microphone. Am I good at it? I don't know. I'm okay. I have fun with it. I'll never be in a band. But the point is, it's that creative flow. And I told you the story not too long ago about being downstairs watching some program that was totally pissing me off. And I finally got to a point where I had to turn the program off. I came up here and I let all of that negativity flow out of my arms, through the drumsticks, onto the drums, via the music, and just let the negativity create the music as I was listening to it. So there's just some thoughts about turning your negativity into creativity, my friends. All right. That wraps up another awesome week here at the Dark Horse HQ. And hey, by the way, if you're looking for some help with your podcast, whether you're considering launching one, already have one and looking some help with the editing and the promotion, or maybe you're looking for ways to monetize your podcast, reach out to me, Tracy at darkhorseschooling.com, or you can go to darkhorseschooling.com/coaching. Fill out that form right there. We'll get together on a free power huddle, right? And we'll make sure you walk away with a success plan. Again, that's darkhorseschooling.com/coaching. Let's see how I can be of service to you in helping you start, restart, or kickstart your business or your podcast. In the meantime, I'm going to leave you as I always do. Think successfully and take action.
Thank you for listening to the Dark Horse Entrepreneur Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in.
Check us out at www.darkhorseschooling.com.
All right.
My name is Tracy Brinkman.